was by far the most horrific thing that I've seen.
We have a 13-story building with most of the building gone. This is going to be a high priority. I see many people on the balconies. There's no elevators. This is nothing. I mean, it almost resembles a trade center. Some people evacuating say it sounds like they heard a bomb.
People living their daily lives, and that everything evaporated in an instant.
Rescuers are desperately searching for survivors right now in Surfside, Florida.
I'm concerned about my mom. I wonder if she was sleeping. I wonder if she got woken up. She didn't call any of us. Her phone goes to voicemail.
I was able to hear the boy that was pulled from the rubble. He was yelling, "Please don't leave me." His mom, we couldn't hear her, couldn't see her.
We walked out and we looked to the left, and the 04 line is sheared in half, and it's like just gone.
There are over 100 units in that building. That's what is frightening us. We're all just scratching our heads, trying to imagine what in the world could have happened.
Good evening, I'm Manuel Bojorquez. Just over a week ago, the unthinkable happened here in Surfside, Florida. In the middle of an unremarkable soft summer night on the beach, everything changed with an ear-shattering eruption as the Champlain Tower South condo building simply collapsed, with dozens and dozens of sleeping residents inside. So many questions remain, and tonight we ask, what could have caused this tragedy? Could anyone have survived? What is being done to find them? In a special report for CBSN and CBS News, along with our Miami station WFOR, we get a look through the eyes of family members, residents, first responders, public officials, and experts. And we will seek some answers. But first, what happened on that fateful morning in Surfside?
Oh my God! What the hell?
This is the incredible, unimaginable situation that none of us could have predicted.
The building, one of these huge buildings, gone. Right here beside us, the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It was by far the most horrific thing that I've seen.
It's very shocking.
Literally, the entire half of the building is completely demolished.
The building shook, and then I looked out the window and you couldn't see. I thought it was like a storm or something coming in.
Oh my gosh. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. They're just now pulling up. Cops just getting here, firefighters, the first one here.
What you're seeing behind me is the massive search and rescue effort that is underway here in Surfside, Florida, after a partial building collapse that happened around 2 this morning.
I heard a incredible bang. We opened up the door from our apartment, and there was a huge pile of rubble and dust. And then this incredible fireman, he's operating this cherry picker, and he got all 5 of us into it with him there. I was so relieved.
It was awful. Kids, grown up screaming, women and children crying, and it was probably one of the worst experiences that I've ever witnessed in my life.
We spoke to one man who was nearby when all this happened. He heard the commotion, he raced over. When he got there, he saw a young child.
As I got closer, I was able to see his hands sticking through the rubble, waving. It was just sheer panic. He just, please don't leave me. So I told him, we're right here. Fire rescue got over there, and they began to get him out.
A devastating morning here in Florida, no other way to put it. I want you to take a look at some images, what is a map view of the condo building before the collapse and what it looks like now. It is something reminiscent of a war zone.
Miami-Dade Fire Rescue at approximately 1:30 this morning responded to a 12-story, 136-unit apartment complex that had sustained a partial collapse.
I have friends there. My friends are missing. I don't have any clue of what happened to them since 2 a.m.
There are over 100 units in that building. The back of the building, probably a third or more, is just totally pancaked. Very filled up building, and we're all just scratching our heads.
I
have friends that live there, and they have no idea because they were in the South Tower. There's no news yet.
This is a very sad moment in our community, and especially the city of Surfside, when something like this actually happens. It is important that all your prayers go out to the family members and those that are suffering right now.
They were on the side that collapsed?
Yes, 10th floor, looking at the beach.
And you haven't heard anything?
No.
Oh, no. And you haven't seen them in the hospital or anything? No word?
No, they sent me here.
And they're all missing?
They're all missing.
We're hoping for additional rescues, but we're also bracing for some potentially terrible news because it was a real catastrophe. For that to happen at 1 in the morning, I mean, these are folks probably, and it was mostly occupied, and so it's a really, really tragic thing.
Between firefighters and search and rescue crews, there are more than 100 people at the scene. This is dangerous work for them, work that will likely go on for days. They've heard what appears to be banging, but so far, no voices.
Just pray. Look, having seen that building from the other side, we have to all pray. We're going to all continue to work, but we need everybody to continue to pray.
Your mother, tell us what you know and what you're hoping for.
What we're hoping for is that they'll find her quickly and that she's still alive, and, you know, we just want to be with our mom.
Yeah.
So
She was the best, our
she
best
is the
friend.
best.
And
You know?
we can't live without her.
For the family members and friends of those still unaccounted for in Champlain Towers South, the unimaginable pain is palpable. The building reflected that wonderful Miami mix of old and young, Jewish, Latinos, and internationals, vacationers, and permanent residents. We spent some time with those who are still keeping the faith and hoping against hope as they wrestle with the likely loss of their loved ones.
That only God is the one who saved them. So you never lose hope. And I'm not losing my hope.
Are the people still trapped?
Do you have any names? We don't know.
6 members of my family are in there. I mean, are in the rubbles. I don't know if they're alive or they dead.
More than 150 people are still unaccounted for.
This is not going to be pretty. It's worse in person than it is in the videos, okay? Yeah, you see it?
Oh my God.
I want my mommy.
Yeah. She's gonna be okay. She's out. We gotta get her out.
When we went to sleep last night, we would have never imagined that this is what we would be waking up to. And we're heartbroken, and I just want my mom to know how much we love her. And we're here, we're not going anywhere, we are not giving up hope. We believe that she's there, and I believe that she knows that we're here to find her.
Yeah.
And we love you, Mom.
Photos of the missing are being hung on a fence nearby, a silent testament to the international community of residents not heard from since the collapse early Thursday morning.
What's the age range of your family that's missing right now?
16 to 62. I'm prepared for the worst, but if they told me, wow, they came out alive, of course I'm gonna be happy celebrating and thanking God. But this shouldn't be happy. Shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen here. Not here. Not here.
Tonight, as families await word about their loved ones, we're learning more about those lost in the collapse.
This picture is my son, Luis Andres, which you can see all pictures and you will see this smile. Always, always. Oh, I'm speechless. Luis Andres was
my heart, my everything. He was born with muscular dystrophy. That wasn't a handicap for him. He defeated so many things, operations, strokes that he had. He got so much challenges in his life, and he was happy all the time. I can show you 10,000 pictures, and 9,999 pictures he will be smiling. He teach me how to live life, how to get close to God, how to be good to people, and how to smile, no matter what happened.
What's missing tonight is the grandkids. And Judy would always be there. The hardest thing that we're gonna do over the next day or two is tell Scarlett about Grandma. That's the hardest thing, because she was their life. She was there for them day and night. She gave herself to everybody, to Michael, to Josh, to Rachel, but to the grandkids.
We're gonna pull everybody out.
I'm having a hard time. I told you about the dress that my mom had ordered, and that was really the last exchange that we had. We said I love you after that, but the dress arrived last night, and we opened the bag and saw the dress. Scarlett is wearing the dress today. She was really happy to put it on because it's really a beautiful, pretty dress.
But we rally and gather strength. O Lord, grant victory. May the King answer us when we call.
I know that my son is in heaven, and he's happy about what he did here and what I did for him. And I'm very sad. I'm broken heart, and I'm very grateful that I had him for 26 years. I miss him a lot, and I'm gonna miss him every second of every day.
As the search continues amid the mountain of twisted metal and crumbled concrete that was once a dignified beachfront residence, there is also a search for answers. How did this happen? What tragic conditions might have brought this 40-year-old building crumbling to the ground? And could it have been prevented? Each day, the list of clues grows a little longer, but it will be many months before the investigations might yield any definitive answers.
It just doesn't happen. You don't see buildings falling down in America.
I mean, it is really, really traumatic to see the collapse of a massive structure like that.
The building, these huge buildings, gone.
What we're talking about here is an unprecedented tragedy, an unprecedented crisis, and one that isn't comparable really anywhere in the U.S.
The problem is the building has literally pancaked. It has gone down, and I mean there's just feet in between stories where there were 10 feet.
There were 13-story buildings with most of the building gone.
I have no idea why this would collapse in this manner. I have no idea. It's very, very rare. It's very unique.
Have I ever seen a building collapse like this building collapsed? No. In almost 40 years in the fire service, I have never seen a building collapse like this building collapsed.
We had a 12-story, 136-unit apartment complex that had sustained a partial collapse.
This is the type of the collapse that you don't see that on an everyday basis. There was a report that heavy construction material was stored in the roof. There was a report that people were hearing noises, cracking, things like that. So all these factors needs to be, structural engineers are going to be collecting all these pieces of information together with everything that is related to the history of this building.
could have been a number of things that alone wouldn't have caused the problem, but together with the trigger caused the problem. You look at things like when they were doing work on a roof, could that possibly have caused anything? You begin to look at what is the strength of the concrete versus what it was supposed to be. You look at the design of the building, and then you look at hurricanes. It could have been 10 years ago, but that could have overstressed the material, and it was not as strong as it originally was.
What we've been told by the Homeland Security folks who have been out, this does not look in any way, shape, or form to be a terrorist act, which leads one thing. This is probably a structural issue. And from the engineers that I've been speaking to, they believe it's probably a subsurface issue.
What's underneath the building? Is it stable ground? That's the structural bed of the overall building itself. The building is resting on the ground. What changes were occurring? The building's settlement, along with the spalling of the rebar, could have combined to add stress to those load-bearing items that allowed this building to fail.
The big problem is with our salt air and water. If the building has not been protected, the concrete that is, we know that salt water will eventually get into and attack the steel and corrode the steel. And then the steel expands in size and then cracks the concrete. We're known to have one of the most aggressive environments here for buildings because of our salt air next to the ocean.
We would have a lot of salt water come in through the bottom of the foundation. It was so much water all the time that the pumps never could keep up with it. The cars would float. That's how much water was in there that would be floating around in the parking lot.
And being in Florida and knowing this area, flooding is really also not a thing you go, oh, maybe somebody wants to look at this. It was always wet, even when it was dry out.
Our protocol as engineers is if we see an issue that comes up that represents any kind of a danger or any kind of a potential danger to the occupants, then what we do is we are, by our registration, we're required to, of course, to alert the occupants, alert the management company.
The structural integrity of the Champlain condos has actually been studied before. Tonight, we have been looking at a report from 2018.
It found issues and documented them.
The report contains several areas that indicate structural defect in this building. We see at the columns that the steel was spalling out. We also see that the membrane surfaces on the balconies were failing. The building envelope that seals the building from the outside environmental damages, such as salt air, were compromised. The doors, the windows, and the roof. My understanding is that there were plans that were prepared to repair this building in 2021. That was too long overdue. Cost plays an effect in all decisions on building repair and maintenance. When you delay maintenance, the cost of repairing goes up exponentially.
Nowhere in that report there is anything that I would, mark as this is a aha moment, and if we would have known this, we would have prevented this. Nothing there really speaks that there is a catastrophe of this size that could be happening.
These buildings they're designed well, they'll perform well, they're built well, but they had to be maintained.
This was a tight-knit community. They want to know what happened to all the people who are unaccounted for. But in the coming weeks, they'll be working with an engineer to figure out what brought this building down.
With respect to the information, we directed our staff to go ahead and scan every shred of documentation that the town of Surfside has, which includes going to our archive storage sites.
We do obviously need to identify why this happened. This is going to be something that's important. It is something that's going to be very thorough, and it is something that is not going to happen in a day or two. This is going to take a long time.
This is a puzzle, and we have to figure out how to put all the pieces together.
remnants of Champlain Tower South look insurmountable. How do you get through the mounds of concrete and steel, the nest of electrical wires and plaster to reach the victims? The 24/7 efforts of first responders and engineers have been nothing short of heroic. We spent some time with some of the men and women who are risking their lives while methodically racing against time.
We have a 13-story building with most of the building gone. We still have people standing upstairs that don't need to be evacuated. The building is gone. There's no elevators. This is nothing. I mean, it almost resembles a trade center.
A massive search and rescue is underway, and we know that we're going to do everything we can possibly do to identify and rescue those who have been trapped in the rubble.
Officials are still clinging to hope here. One boy was pulled out this morning, and rescuers say they are still hearing sounds from this rubble. Right now, teams are slowly tunneling in below the building, but they say things are still too unstable to send searchers on top of the pile.
As we make one hole, we access a floor. We continue to the various areas. We did receive sounds, what sounds like people banging.
Any idea how many people are missing right now?
Well, there are over 100 units in that building. That's what is frightening us very badly right now.
As the sun sets on the most tragic day this community can remember, we stand in solidarity once again to tell you we are working around the clock to search and rescue people.
We're about 100 yards from where the collapse happened, and it smells like a fire. And that's because there have been little fires burning over the last 24 hours since the building partially collapsed.
There's so many hazards we're encountering, and the fire just compounds it. The fire is deeply seated, deeply rooted under the structure. So you've seen it in and out, and unfortunately we keep having flare-ups of it, and it's just not accessible.
Unfortunately, this has been a tragic night. Our unaccounted for number has gone up to 159. We will continue search and rescue because we still have hope that we will find people alive. That is exactly why we're continuing. That is why we're using our dogs and our sonar and our cameras, everything possible to seek places where there may still be people.
This is a risk to your life as well.
Yes. Yes. The reason I do this is because I want to help people. We don't do this for the money. We don't do this for fame. We do this because we want to help. That's why all these first responders, all the police are out here.
We begin this morning with the round-the-clock rescue and recovery efforts at the site of that collapsed apartment building in Surfside, Florida, just north of Miami Beach. Overnight, crews continued to search through the rubble in hopes of finding survivors.
We do have a very advanced technology of sonar and microphones that can detect not only movement of the pile, but anybody tapping or anybody scratching. If we hear sounds of that nature, we will have the dogs come over. And if the dog's alert, then we take it from there. We continue opening search holes.
We don't have a resource problem here, we have a luck problem. The issue is that we've been fighting the elements, we've been fighting the fire, but we have one objective, and that is to bring those people out of the rubble safely and return them to their families.
We're just continuously moving forward with our mission, attempting to locate anyone who could potentially be alive in the rubble.
Certainly not an easy mission, but again, you said you do believe, or you have hope at least, that there are people alive under that rubble.
We definitely have hope.
Is that time nearing that it'll switch from a rescue effort to a recovery?
We are in search and rescue, and we have just been joined by additional search and rescue team from Israel. We had already some Mexican experts on scene. Everybody that is needed is on the site and doing the work, and we're continuing our efforts to find people alive.
This is one of the best, if not the best, and the most experienced rescue team, Israeli rescue teams. They've been all over the world in many similar situations. This is our responsibility as human beings.
The fire, it's controlled. It's really hard to put out because of where it is at. It's at a very ground level. And while they're doing their best with the machinery and the water.
We're cutting a deep trench to assist us. It's now 125 feet in length into the pile. It's 20 feet wide, and 40 feet deep. Now, this trench is very critical to the continuation of the search and rescue process.
David, every morning we all wake up and hope that there is some sign of life, some good news. What can you tell us about the latest on the rescue efforts today?
Good morning, Gil. You just can't get past that number of 150 people missing.
They hardly rest. They come off for about 45 minutes. They check their pulse, they check their O2 levels, and they go back to work because that's what they do. They work to save lives.
Good morning. The temporary stop in operations occurred at 02:11 due to additional concerns for building stability.
We're letting the nation know we can cooperate. I mean, just the simple act of everybody doing whatever needs to be done is it really makes a difference.
Since our last briefing, I'm very pained to tell you that we found 2 additional bodies in the rubble, which brings our total count to 18 fatalities. It is also with great sorrow, real pain, that I have to share with you that 2 of these were children, aged 4 and 10. So any loss of life, especially given the unexpected, unprecedented nature of this event, is a tragedy. But the loss of our children is too great to bear.
The collapse of Champlain Tower South will be remembered as one of the more horrific events in recent American history. But what will also be remembered is the resilience of the human spirit, the heroism of the first responders, the powerful faith of family and friends, the unity of a small and diverse community, and the collective support from people around the country and around the world. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone here in Surfside, Florida now and in the weeks and months ahead. I'm Manuel Bojorquez. From all of us at CBS News, good night.